Hi, this is Derek Regensberger, and welcome to another episode of the Clarinet Connection, your source for gear and product reviews and practice and performance tips for the clarinet. I just recently got back from the Midwest Clinic in Chicago, and this is a nationwide band convention, but one of the things it features is a very large trade show. And so I thought it would be interesting to give you a few details of what I saw at the trade show and kind of upcoming gear and some of the really interesting developments and models that I saw while there in Chicago. First of all, Selmer has released a new version of the Presence clarinet. And the Presence is Selmer's answer to the Buffet R13. It is an entry-level professional clarinet. And the Presence is known for having a fairly free-blowing sound to it, known for solid intonation. Ergonomics are a little unconventional. I think it tends to fit hands that are fairly small in size, and the keys and the layout doesn't tend to fit players with larger hands like myself. So Selmer has released an updated version of the instrument, and it should be hitting the store shelves soon. It was the first time that they'd had an opportunity to display the model. And I would say that some of the changes to the sound are pretty noticeable. It still does retain its free-blowing feel. It has added a carbon fiber ring to the middle joint instead of the traditional silver or metal ring that was there before. And it's also made some changes to the bell, along with some ergonomic changes to the layout of the keys. The overall sound, I would say, is pretty similar. There is a little more ping or ring to the sound than the previous version, but I would say the adjustments are fairly minor. Again, the ergonomics of the key layout really didn't fit my hands, but I think would be great for people with smaller hands. Overall, I think it's a subtle but positive improvement to the instrument. It's a fairly similar sound profile to what you'd find on an R13, with perhaps a little bit better intonation, but there's definitely more of a low-end sound to the instrument that I think was lacking previously. And it sounds a little bit different than an R13. An R13 you'd find, say, has a pretty deep low end, and then it spreads a little in the high register, so it's a little harder to control in the highs, but it does provide a very nice ring to the sound that I think is perhaps still lacking a little bit in the Selmer. But both instruments are definitely worth a look if you're interested in purchasing a new professional model. Some of the other models that I had a chance to look at, for the first time I was able to try out the Backun Lumiere, and really this is quite an intriguing clarinet. If you're familiar at all with the Backun lineup, they kind of have a stepped series of instruments, just like many other manufacturers do. They don't really have what I would call a covered or a focused instrument that would be equivalent to, say, a Buffet Legendre or Tradition line, or the Ubel Superior line. But what they do have, I think, are some unique entries in the market. One of I think the selling features of the Lumiere is simply just its really unique layout as far as keywork goes. The inline trill keys are designed to prevent water buildup, so they're designed a little bit differently. It has raised tone holes, which again help with, I would say, the feel of the instrument, as well as, again, preventing water buildup. It also has a really unique low F correction mechanism. If you are not pressing the register key, it engages automatically the low F correction, so it raises the pitch of, as we all know, the note that's notoriously flat on the clarinet. Overall, I think it's a very good design. I thought the ergonomics were very solid. It felt comfortable under my hands, which are kind of large to begin with, and overall, I thought this was a well-balanced clarinet. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. One of the things that was definitely noticeable with the clarinet is it has a very large sound profile to it. I didn't feel constricted at all by the clarinet like I have on some other professional models. It has a nice low-end sound to it. Overall, I think it's a very good choice for a professional clarinet. One of the things that I'd really like to do is conduct an in-home trial of the instrument. There really aren't any Backun dealers here in Colorado, so it's something that I'll have to see if I can procure through one of the local music stores or the local Backun rep. But hopefully I'll be able to do an in-home trial and give you a better sense of how the instrument performs, particularly here at high altitude, where if something sounds good at sea level like in Chicago, it's debatable whether it'll sound the same here in Colorado. There's just a lot of differences with the change in altitude and the dry climate. Similarly, I had a chance to try out some of the high-end buffet models, most notably the 21 series. They did not have a divine, which is probably by design. The divine is the top end of the RC line, and the RC line is kind of a little tempered version of the Prestige. And as a result, it's pretty popular in Europe, but not nearly as popular here in the United States. So the 21 is one of the latest professional offerings, and I think perhaps the most notable selling feature of the 21 is its low E flat. So unlike most clarinets that end at low E, it has that lower extra half stop. Comes in useful in something like, say, Peter and the Wolf, where instead of having to switch back and forth between the A clarinet and the B flat, because there are a lot of low E flats, if you were to play simply the B flat model, you could just simply keep playing your B flat if that was your choice, because this particular instrument has that low E flat. It also has a rather radical bell design. The idea, again, is to create a little more of a compact sound, but it's not nearly as restrictive as, say, the Tradition and Legendre models. But the way it accomplishes this is, one, it has a very long lower joint. So you definitely notice that the clarinet itself feels more like you're playing an A clarinet than a B flat. The other thing is that the bell itself, the interior the bore of the bell is much smaller than a typical B-flat clarinet. So much so that you actually have to put it on an E-flat clarinet stand and not a B-flat clarinet stand. So if you do opt for this model, keep it in mind that you will have to buy a new clarinet stand for it. Some of just the playing features of it, I thought it was a fairly responsive instrument. Again, I did not find it as nearly restrictive as, say, the Tradition or Legendre. Fullness to the sound without being as broad, say, as a Tosca. So depending on whether you like or dislike the Tosca sound, the 21 might be a good option for you. I will say that a lot of players have found it to be a rather polarizing instrument, just because of its quirkiness, its largeness. So some players just don't want to have to deal with the fact that they're going to have to perhaps relearn a little bit of playing the instrument. I didn't find it bothered me really nearly as much, but again, with something like this instrument, I would like to do an in-home trial just to see how it plays different excerpts, different types of music, and whether it really has that that fullness of sound that I'm looking for. Again, in a large trade show convention hall, it's a little hard to obviously determine the acoustical properties of any given clarinet. A couple other things. Another model I was able to try out was the Moe Custom clarinets. Moe Custom is, you might be familiar with Moe Bleichner. They are the distributor, one of the distributors for Ubel clarinets in the United States. And so this particular clarinet line is a custom series. Really has some nice features to it, one being the pads that they use. The pads are designed to really last a long time, and it's a little different material than you'd find on other clarinets. So I did find the feel of the pads to be pretty good. The sound of the instrument kind of depends on which particular one in the line that you pick up. I tried out both the P and the R versions. The P stands for Philharmonic. And it, to me, had a little more restrictive, more focused sound. So again, I would compare it more to the Tradition and Lejeune line. You really would, I think, notice a difference when you're trying to get a full dynamic range from the clarinet. The R version is a little more expressive, a little more open feeling, and I found it to be the nicer of the two instruments as far as the sound profile goes. The key layout was a little bit different than I'm used to. So again, if you opted for this instrument, I think it would take a couple of weeks to get used to the feel of the keys and the ergonomics of the instrument. But overall, I thought it produced a nice sound. A couple of the mouthpieces that I had a chance to demo, one was Gleichweit. Gleichweit is a Austrian company that produces narrow tip opening mouthpieces, but they do work okay on American style instruments. I found them to be fairly free blowing. You have an immediacy of response with these small tip openings, and the materials they're made from are a little bit different. They seem to be more of a composite material than what you would say would be hard rubber. It was more of a plastic composite material. And the same thing applied to the barrel. They also have a line of barrels. And again, I thought they were interesting. They're made from kind of a marbleized material. So they have a kind of a radical look to them, but they, I thought, produced a fairly open sound. The combination produces a nice round focused sound, but you are going to lose some dynamics as a result. The overall combination, I think, is quite pleasing. Again, I think it would be one of those where it's personal preference. Are you looking for a more focused round sound? Then I think Gleichweit would be a good choice. If you're looking for more of an open sound, then I would probably steer more toward Vandoren and Phobes as far as mouthpiece choices go. Speaking of Vandoren, I had a chance to demo a couple of the newer HD mouthpieces. Previously, I had demoed an HD5, which is a BD5, a Black Diamond series mouthpiece that is made of high-density rubber. And you really notice the difference in the high-density line. They're about 50% heavier, so you really will feel the heft of the mouthpiece. And again, I hope to be able to do an in-home demo of one of these mouthpieces fairly quickly. I would say the BD5 is pretty comparable to something like a Shedville Umbra. It produces a nice dark sound, but the sound volume is really restrictive. You really can't get triple forte or double forte very easily out of this mouthpiece. In contrast, the BD4, although it's a slightly wider tip opening, I think it's a 1.15 versus a 1.13, but it has a longer face to it. And that longer face really, I think, helps it give it a more immediate response. So you don't have some of the articulation issues that you would say on some of the other wider tip opening mouthpieces. I thought the BD4 was really a great sounding mouthpiece. And again, I hope to be able to compare it to my own personal Phobes and see how it compares. I thought it really had a nice round and full sound to it without sacrificing the dark quality to it. So I really look forward to trialing that mouthpiece in the future. One of the more unique things that I found was this breath trainer. For any of you who teach clarinet, whether it's in private lessons or you're a band director, this little gizmo is really kind of handy. As you can see, it is what looks like a tiny recorder. There's 3 little holes up here in it, and there is a kind of a mouthpiece simulator. So you blow into the hole, and then you have a visual component to it. The balloon expands as you blow into it, so like such. And So one of the cool things about this is it really teaches students to put the adequate amount of air pressure into the instrument. You really have to think about blowing a nice tight focused stream of air into this little gizmo, and it helps students kind of visualize, as the balloon expands. So if they kind of just give it, their typical you can see you can't really blow the balloon up. You have to really produce a nice tight stream of air. It's also really useful for things like articulation. So again, if you have students that cut off their airstream, as they tongue, it's really evident in this lung trainer. So this is produced by Lung Trainers, simply lungtrainers.com. Most of their products are actually more for the medical field, and they are, quite expensive digital readouts that actually, inform the viewer of how much lung capacity and strength they're exerting. Something like this is obviously much cheaper. I think it runs about $9 for the combo. So again, if you're doing private lessons or a band director, something like the Lung Trainer would come in handy. Another thing that I was able to look at was a Reed Geek tool. I'm going to do a separate review of that. I bought one. I was really impressed by what it could do. I think it's a little more accurate, a little more conservative as far as removing and shaping a reed compared to sanding. So I'll kind of go through both processes in a future video and show you kind of what the difference is between sanding and using the Reed Geek tool, and kind of how that might be beneficial. And so again, look for that in a future video. Well, that concludes my recap of the trade show at the Midwest Clinic. So again, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to have future videos here shortly on some of the products that I reviewed. Thank you.